we are live. We already have someone's following somewhere, so this is good. And we have background music because we've got an orchestra practicing behind us. So welcome to the show.
Welcome everybody.
We have listener.
We have a listener. All right, who's kicking off? Who's leading this thing? Sean, Gase, Lee.
First, welcome to what are we?
Bourbon, Beer, and Books.
Bourbon, Beer, and Books. Full disclosure, it's the last week of the semester. It's finals week, and I'm up to my neck in grading. And so if I seem a little loopy, it's because I am. I'm Lee, and we have with us Case and Sean and
Dory.
I was about to say Dorothy, and I was like, that is not right.
Yep.
And today,
yep.
Hey, Dory.
Guerra. Dory Guerra.
Hola. Today we're talking about Jaws. That is my choice for the book club. I was born the year Jaws came out, just a month after it came out, less than a month after it came out. It is the movie, not the book. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. When they did the anniversary release in the theaters, I went and watched it again with my friends. Still scared the pants off of me. And I've been meaning to read the book forever, and so excited that we're going to be talking about it today. One of the things that I was told for a long time is that if I like the movie, don't read the book. I was given the impression that the book was not very good. I love it. It's different. And we're going to talk about that. So what is this book about? It's about a small seaside town whose residents sort of rely on the influx of rich summerers to get them through a hard winter. So they're financially strapped. It's a beach town. The very elite from like Yale and the like, people I'd never rub elbows with, or I should say would never rub elbows with the likes of me, go in summer there and play tennis and do fabulous things. And the story centers around the chief of police, Brody. And Brody is put into a pickle when a shark starts eating the residents of the town. He wants to close the beach, but the town is already on the rocks financially, and they're worried that a summer without traffic will ruin them all. It gets more complicated than that. The reasons are better than in the movie, I would say. And ultimately, Brody has got to find a way to stop that shark from eating the people in the town. How's that for an overview of the movie? Of the book. We're talking about the book, not the movie.
You did a great job. Yeah,
excellent.
But you're completely right. I mean, there's so much different than the movie. I know he took all the best elements of it, but I was so surprised about the social economic divide and the struggles in the book as compared to the movie. And so even like Ellen Brody, Chief Brody's wife, in the movie, she's two-dimensional. In the
she's
book,
so much more interesting in the book. So much. Actually, before we get into this socioeconomic conversation, because I think it's really important. It's actually, we think it's a book about a shark, and it is, but it's also about all this other stuff. Did you like it? Did everybody like it? Did you not like it? Let's start with just how we felt about it, because I was shocked how much I liked it. I was also shocked by how fast it read.
I'm gonna go next because I just want Case and Dory to introduce themselves too, because we're missing Tia Brown this month. She couldn't make it up in Buffalo, New York. But I'm Sean Davis. I'm up here in Mackenzie Bridge, Oregon. That's about, if you're traveling south from Portland and you hit Eugene, you take a left and you travel up into the mountains for an hour and a half, and that's where I live. Very, very rural. That's why this book has really resonated with me, because really this book is about a rural area that has a tourist economy that's going through a crisis, and all the people in charge are realtors. And that's what's happening with me, because we just had the Holiday Farm fire up here, which just devastated our whole area. We're unincorporated, so we don't have like a government, but we do have our Chamber of Commerce and a community development corporation, and they're all peopled by realtors and developers, and it's completely changing our entire the entire landscape up here. So, so I taught for a long time. I'm also reading it through the books that we read through the eyes of a veteran for 12 years. I'm a combat veteran from Iraq, Purple Heart, and live rural now, and I try to champion rural ideas. And so, I was really surprised by this book, and I really liked it a lot.
Sorry, I can't hear anything right now. I don't know what anyone just said.
We have a giant orchestra playing, so we're messing right behind us. They're practicing. We didn't know.
No, that's what happens when you go live.
Yeah.
When you go live, you accept the consequences.
Just introduce yourself.
Yeah, introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. My name is Dory, and I'm a friend of Case, and he asked me to join in today. He called me up on Thursday and messaged me and said, "You think you can read Jaws by Tuesday at 5?" And I said, "Absolutely."
Did you do it?
I finished it on Saturday night. Jaws the movie it's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a cinematic masterpiece. I don't find that to be a bold statement. I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to jump in and talk about this book. I have never read the book. Took me 43 years to get to it, but I'm glad I finally did. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is Case Johnston. I have a confession, and Brandon said I didn't have to do this, but I'm going to. So the last two.
This is awesome. But
the last two bourbon book beers and books.
Bourbon, beer, and books, man.
I've been drinking this beer. Can you see it?
Old
Milwaukee.
Non-alcoholic beer.
Look very close.
Oh.
Did you know it was non-alcoholic?
I did, and so because I just had these crazy days the last couple of times, and so this is the first time I actually have alcohol in my body during our podcast.
Case, it still qualifies as a beer, though.
That is true. It is a beer. It's just non-alcoholic beer. But I have to tell you that it's not bad. And Brandon said, "Well, how come your friends didn't know?" And I said, "They've never seen one before." So that's my confession. How did I like Jaws? I dug Jaws, the book. I mean, I love the movie. I love the movie. I watched it last night again, and I absolutely love the movie. Spielberg was fantastic with it, but this book had a lot of depth to it that I didn't expect. I thought it would be a thriller. It's not a thriller in any way, shape, or form. And I found out too that there are more in-depth sex scenes than there are attack scenes in this book. Like,
oh my god, I want to talk about this.
Okay, everybody's in our chat. Those of you, first of all, shout out to Kelly, who's commented on our podcast. We all missed Tia as well, but thank you so much for joining us, Kelly. And I. Because Sean brought this up, I'm also right next to the coast. I'm just next to the other one. I'm in Florida. And I grew up I'm in Central Florida, but I grew up in Miami. So, all of the things that Sean said about tourist economy or economies based on things outside of your control, especially real estate, they all stand for me as well. I was getting to something. I know I was. The sex scenes. So this came up in our online chat. So before we get on the podcast, we chat all month, and I was a little late getting to the book because stuff, and the guys just kept talking about the sex scenes. So I went into this book thinking this is going to be raunchy. They're not all that. These boys. They don't know sex, and they are not that bad. There are not that many of them. They're going to go on and on about them, but there really aren't.
I said it read like a field manual. He goes on and on about the vagina. And I want to know, so chapter 8, and I hope we spend a lot of time on chapter 8, because do women really baby powder their nipples and vaginas? I don't because I'm reading this. I'm like, hey, Kel, read this. My wife.
It has happened.
I concur.
It has happened.
It's so. God,
I do it before long runs.
But I actually have so we have a lot to talk about today.
A lot to talk about. I wanted to jump into just the point of view I mean, what do you guys think about that? Because you don't usually read third person omniscient anymore. All right. And I don't know. And I know, Lee, you can talk about this more than I, but I understand that it in a literary sense, like literary types, they're like, that is out of fashion. We don't do that. We don't do third person omniscient, probably since, I don't know, Gulliver's Travel.
Isn't Jess Walters the Beautiful Runes in Third Omniscient? Am I misremembering that?
No,
it's been years since I've read it.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, it's been 6 or 7 years.
But there's not a lot of them that are third person omniscient anymore, right? No. I mean, I know this was in the 70s. We wrote.
No, there aren't. Although, a friend of ours wrote a short story, Sharon Harrigan, I think. I want to say it was Sharon's story in third person omniscient, which is really hard to do. I think one of the problems with third person omniscient from a literary standpoint is it's a lot of balls in the air, not just for the writer, but for the reader. But I think it really works in this. And I think it goes back to that field manual stuff. There are points where the humans are treated the same way as the shark by the narrator.
Yeah.
I actually think that's super cool. Not all the time.
Yeah.
But I think I think you couldn't do that. And you couldn't do the shark stuff without third person. I think it's the only way this book works.
That's what I was going to say. Like the whole first chapter is told through the point of view of the great fish. Right, not the point of view, but like close third on the great fish swimming. And I had so I wanted to read just a part of this. This is like when you pick up this book and you open it. Here's one of the I thought was one of the best parts. The eyes were sightless in the black, and the other senses transmitted nothing extraordinary to the small primitive brain. The fish might have been asleep, save for the movement dictated by countless millions of years of instinctive continuity, lacking other fish and the furring flaps push oxygen bearing water through its gills. It survived only by moving. Once stopped, it would sink to the bottom and die of anoxia. I thought that was brilliant because right away, I mean, who's going to do a book through the point of view of fish? You can't do first person. I mean, hey, someone wants to pick up that challenge, do it. But I don't think you'd do a first person book through a shark's point of view. And right here, he's already set the whole for the rest of the book. This thing is a killing machine. It can't stop. If it stops at any moment, it dies. And I think that was brilliant.
And I'm sorry, Case, and I'm just jumping in here. But what I was going to say is, right before that scene, we have right after that scene, we have the humans on the beach, making out, having sex. It's a really quick sex scene. And the word thrashing is used for them. Right. So right away we get the parallel. It's on purpose. It's telegraphed to us. Immediately we're given, as we walk into this book, we're given this parallel between the humans and the sharks that is sort of carried throughout. And I don't think you could do that if it wasn't third omniscient. How did that work for you guys, for the rest of you?
Go for it. How did the third person omniscient work for you as a reader?
While you're reading.
I'm going to give Dory a shot because she can't actually hear us right now.
Yeah, I can't hear very well.
So,
and I'm blind.
So.
Well, at least at least the symphony stopped. I'm going to take this really quick pause because we had another message on Facebook. Christina Miller asked if we drank beer or bourbon while reading, specifically the case. But I'm going to jump in. So I took my family to the coast, down to Newport on the Oregon coast. Beautiful. And I drink a lot of beer. And actually, I bought some rye because I really like the rye because it's a little bit more rye than corn. And 51% of whiskey, if it's corn, that makes it a bourbon. But I wanted to drink bourbon for the show, but I was drinking rye and beer on the coast. And I would read this to Kelly, and especially chapter 8. She's like, what the hell? But Casey, do you drink beer or bourbon while reading?
Okay, Case went to go get more beer.
Yeah, I'm getting more. The first two episodes I didn't have any, so I'm gonna go ahead and have a couple. But I'm gonna actually have some bourbon tonight. I think Brandon has some in there, and I'll go get it in a bit. But while reading, No, not while reading.
We'll get them there, Christina. We'll get them there.
Yeah.
And if we're sharing what we're drinking, I'm cheating. I'm not having bourbon or beer. I'm having a sherry cobbler.
Nice. I don't know what that is. What is
that? A drink that I just tried this week. Shout out to How to Drink, the YouTube channel that we listen to and watch. That's this year's project, was trying new weird drinks. And this is a sherry cobbler, and it's freaking delicious. I'm just going to put that out there. It's freaking delicious. It's got sherry in it, which I don't know. I mean, do I look like someone who's like, oh,
I know you cook with that stuff, right?
Yeah, right. And simple syrup and muddled orange. Like a lot of orange. And I'm actually using those little clementines that are super sweet, and then ice, and you just shake it up, and it's super summery, super delicious. And so I'm cheating. I'm not having either one, but it's like 90 something degrees out. And
oh, wow. No, it's
sherry cobbler seems good.
High 70s here. So I'm drinking, well, you can see. So my wife and I, Kelly and I, did a tasting of this 2 days ago. And so all that was left was what's in here now because of our tasting. But that's Jefferson's Ocean. It's a bourbon. I think it's from the East Coast. But so the founder of Jefferson's Ocean, this guy named Trevor, I don't forget his last name, but he thought about like putting barrels of bourbon on ships to go in the ocean while he was tagging sharks. So I thought it would be appropriate for the show. So and each barrel of the small batch, he says, crosses the equator 4 times and goes to over 30 ports. And so it's a pretty decent bourbon. My wife and I did a video. You can see it on our the Bourbon Beer and Books Facebook group. It's in there somewhere. Oh, and I'm also drinking Rogue Brewery's Colossal Claude. It is, we don't have sharks up here. We have sea monsters, apparently. But Rogue Brewery is a brewery out of Newport, Oregon. And it's an amazing Imperial India Pale Ale.
Go for it, Dory.
Oh, I'm drinking. I don't have any bourbon today, but I've got that. Well, maybe I do.
Yeah,
got,
I have some.
Epic Brewing India Pale Ale Sour IPA. I am a fan of the sours. I didn't bring anything Jaws related or aquatic related. That's what I had in my fridge.
Christina Miller is asking if there's a drink you'd be inspired to drink from the book. So in the book, there's a couple of characters who are always drinking ginger and rye. Mm-hmm. And I've never had ginger and rye, but I love both of those things. So I was thinking maybe next week I would buy some ginger ale and some rye. I'm not really a soda and alcohol person unless it's tonic or soda water, but I think I'm going to try that. So that's the drink I might drink from Jaws. They also drink a lot of gin and tonics, but I'm already a G&T girl. So how about the rest of you? Any drinks from the book that you might be interested in trying? There's a lot of drinking.
I didn't notice the drinks, but I sure noticed the sex scenes. I don't know what it was.
It might tell you something about the difference between us, Case.
Well, here's the thing. Growing up, my mom, of course, she blacked out MTV, right? You couldn't see MTV. Mm-hmm. In movies, we couldn't watch them. And her response to every movie, and it still is today, is that would have been a good movie without the sex. Because her response is always, it's not necessary, Doyle, which she says to my dad. And I felt like my mom a lot through this, except for chapter 8, which we will talk about in a bit. But I didn't even notice people having drinks.
Yeah.
They're drinking all the time.
I didn't even notice that. I just, I noticed the shark.
That's good. I'm glad you didn't miss that part.
The book made me want to drink. Not because it was terrible, but because they kept mentioning the drink. But that'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, and so some of the times they're drinking like at dinner party. Well, their attempt at a dinner party, and it's sort of social. And then other times, like, Brody's having a rough time, and so at that same party he gets kind of he gets drunk and then he decides he doesn't want to be drunk. And there's this whole like trying to control how much he's taking in. And there's actually, I'm with you. There's a lot of drinking in it.
I do remember that one dinner party. I remember that with Brody. And then I remember the dinner party when, of course, Ellen is flirting with Hopper. And there's a lot of wine going on between the two of them.
Yeah. Oh, not the dinner party, the sneaky dinner.
Yeah, the sneaky dinner, right?
Sneaky dinner.
Oh, that dinner.
It's like a shark type of dinner. It sneaks up on you.
That's a terrible joke.
Well, like I told you, this is the first time I've had alcohol in me for our podcast. So here comes Case.
Yeah, here come the puns.
So,
I don't know where Sean went. But...
Oh, okay.
Sean's gone? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sean's
well, gone. Christina says she loves ginger and rye. Well, Christina, for you next week at my home, when you're not here, I'm going to drink a ginger and rye and I'm going to think about you, Christina. So one of the things that happens in this book a lot that we've already talked about, but I'd like to actually kind of dig into is this, the socioeconomic kind of is almost the socioeconomic strife is kind of maybe an equally big plot as the shark. And I think that there's a reason for that. There might be some stuff going on there. So thoughts on I'm going to hand it off. What are you guys thinking about how this book handles sort of this socioeconomic commentary it's making?
I feel like they handled it well. I do love that they threw that in there. It's, the tale of the beautiful people versus the townies, the haves and the have-nots, and whose life is worth more. And, this is a movie that I watch every 4th of July. But watching it in 2020 among the pandemic, you see a lot of that in Jaws.
Oh, my God. In the book, I kept thinking, right? Because like online, people have made comparisons to the movie, right? Keeping the beaches open. In the movie, that's so nebulous. It's like, it seems so stupid. In the book, it's more solidified as to why, but it almost makes it more uncomfortable. The connections we can make between it and the pandemic. Like there were moments where I was like, ooh, I don't know that I'm feeling safe here, because of this connection between what's more important, us, our livelihood or our lives, especially when there's a child that dies and the argument is made over and over again. Children are often in danger in this. And it hits so close to home. Yeah, absolutely. With the pandemic.
And in the book, they go into more detail talking to the deli owner and the hardware store. So you're more into the lives of the winter people. So it hits you a lot harder and they kind of just glaze over it in the movie. That's what I love about the book. Just all that building of the townies and the summer people and
right. And they're compared in the book. I don't know who does it. I think the newspaper guy compares the relation there as parasitic, right? That the townies are, and he's a townie. He says, it may not be nice, but we're like ticks on a dog, and if the dog leaves, we're gonna starve. And so we've got that animal comparison and that eating comparison just right there on the page.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. And definitely so much more than in the movie. In the movie, you say automatically, I think Lee just said this, that it seems so obvious. Like where the mayor is like, keep them open, the protagonist is saying no, and the audience is saying no. Of course, there's a big shark out there because we know it, a little bit of dramatic irony there. But I think a lot of it does come back to Ellen in chapter 8, and we can't talk about this without Sean. But she is really a microcosm of a lot of this in the way that she wants it. I mean, she literally says, I want it injected in me.
Yeah.
And it's, injection can be economic injection, economic stimulant, stimulus. And she literally says that about this man who she has sex with And it's not for sex reasons. It's for her to receive that life, that rich life that she once had, physically or metaphorically physically. And so I think that she is just a microcosm of the island, and the way in which the author does that is, now that I think about it, is really, really interesting. And we see that here in Ogden. I mean, Ogden is a ski town. And so we need snow, just like they need beaches. And so if we don't get snow, we are in Utah, all across the West Side Front. If we don't get snow, our economy is really going to struggle. And the pandemic played into that too, is we need tourism. And we need people to come in and inject that money into our economy. So I think that the author, and I just didn't expect it so much in the book, but he does it really, really well. And there's all these characters have a lot of depth compared to what's happening in the movie overall. But yeah, it was really cool. I texted Sean. He said the loggers dropped a tree on the power line. So I don't know if we're gonna get him back. So we need to.
Happens all the time.
Yeah,
happens all the time.
Happens here all the time.
It does. Yeah, we've actually lost it. Yeah.
Wind. Yeah.
So one of the things that you bring up there about Ellen that I thought was really interesting was she's so self-aware. She's not confused about why she wants to have an affair. It's not even really an affair to her. She's not. No. She's aware of her sadness. She's aware of what she has and what she's given up. She's aware of her own struggle just constantly. She's not sort of a befuddled 70s housewife. Mm-hmm. She loves her family. There's times when she's super playful with Brody, and you can see that she loves him, but she's so depressed, and she's aware that she's sad, and she knows exactly why she's sad. And she's, I'm not saying that I like what she does, but she is proactive. She's trying to heal herself in some way. And she's kind of like the town, right? She's trying to heal herself, and it's a bad idea. But it's still what she's trying to do. And it's sort of interesting because I think he could have made her so unlikable.
Yeah, he did. And do you think is that him writing in the 70s compared to writing a female character in 2021 who instead of looking desperate and depressed is more in control of her own sexuality and is in charge of it and is not ashamed of it? Do you think that's a generational thing?
Well, no, I don't think she's ashamed of her sexuality. I think that she's using sex to make herself. I think she's fully aware of what she's doing. I think she's excited about it. Mm-hmm. I think that her desperation and her sadness are about the choices she's made in life, that she had to pick between two things. I actually feel like she's pretty fully actualized.
Mm. So for him writing that in the 70s, would you say he's probably somewhat progressive?
Maybe. I mean, we have to remember that there was a lot of movement towards that in the 70s. And I think there are a lot of ways he's trying to be very progressive in this book. He talks about race, perhaps clumsily. I'm not saying he does a good job about it, but I see that what he's trying to do there. He's trying to talk about race as a socioeconomic issue. He's trying to, I think, talk about women in a sort of maybe clumsy but feminist perspective. I do. I think that this was a bestseller, but I think there's a lot of progressive things, even stuff like animal rights that are brought up in it. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of progressiveness, and that maybe today readers are going to be like, well, that's not, but I see the moves he's trying to make,
Mm-hmm.
I like the movie he made with Daisy Wicker.
Oh, yeah.
Dinner party.
Right.
And she comes in and she's ruffling the feathers and poking the bear. And I thought that was great.
And she's gay?
Yep, she's gay.
Yep.
And that's not really a huge issue.
No.
There's gossip, but it's not, Brody's not discussed, No.
It's just his way of, it's a craft tool for him to figure out later that Hopper's lying. Yeah. I think it's a great way to do it. I mean, say, well, that's not a possibility. I thought that was actually, yeah, you're right. I think that was pretty cool.
I don't know of a lot of, well, no, I think there's a lot of pretty progressive books coming out at that time though.
Mm-hmm.
And just to check with everybody else, Daisy sneaks Brody weed. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, that is what happens there.
Where he gets all
unbeknownst to him, right? Yeah. That's what's happening there. Yeah. Daisy's a really interesting to have such an interesting and deep character that's there for like 2 seconds.
She left a mark.
Yeah, sure. She did.
It's crazy.
It was a great way of dropping a breadcrumb at that. And then later on, you're at the boat, and we all know, except for Hopper, right? And it's in that third person omniscient, but the reader knows what Hopper doesn't, and so does the protagonist in Brody. And that made that concluding scene where he's like, "Where were you?" really, really well done. Again, it goes back to this book really surprised me in the way in which it was written, and no wonder like someone like Spielberg says, "Okay, this is something that I can run with."
Yeah. I will say one thing. So creature features are like one of my main movie genres. I love them, but I haven't read many creature feature books, right? So I've read the Jurassic Park series, and I've read Jaws, and I think that's kind of it for creature books. And, in Jurassic Park, when I read Jurassic Park, I was scared. I was nervous in this, but like you said, it's not really a thriller. I wasn't terrified. I was nervous a lot, but, and it's interesting because Spielberg does both of the movies, and the movies Jaws is terrifying, right? The movie is really scary, and Jurassic Park is more of an adventure. It's got scary moments, but I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's kind of interesting to think about what Spielberg has done there in changing those books while being pretty faithful, sort of, to them, and yet the tones kind of get shifted.
Spielberg created a worldwide terror of going into the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up on the Gulf Coast in a beach town, and that movie left a permanent scar where even to this day, going into an ocean and any body of water, a lake, swimming pool, the shark tank of an aquarium, I still always think, where's the shark?
Yeah.
He left that permanent scar on a lot of people.
I think our generation completely.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I'm the exact same way, and I won't let my son watch it, even though it's a brilliant movie, because I don't want him to have that same phobia. And look, like you said, a global phenomenon about fear of sharks in the ocean, based on a book, based on a movie, based on a book, because there's a lot less death. There's a lot less shark deaths in the book. Am I right? I mean, it seems like there's the boy.
I think there's the same amount.
There's 4 deaths by Jaws, by the fish.
Right.
Pardon me. By the fish himself, because technically, is a spoiler. Can I do spoilers? I mean, you've had since 1974 to read the book.
Yeah.
You've had time. Quint technically doesn't die by the mouth of Jaws.
Right.
But
so
it's
three bites.
4.
No. Wait. There's the girl. There's the boy.
Yeah.
There's the old man. There's the fisherman. There's
the fisherman. Hopper.
There's Hopper.
Hooper.
So there's at least
Hooper.
5.
You keep saying Hooper. Hopper.
I go back.
Yeah, so maybe they are the same. It seemed to me that the movie had more deaths, but then maybe it's because they're just so dramatic in my mind.
I think it's that music.
Yeah,
I think that's the beginning and end of it.
Yeah. And Dory's right. Like when we go on vacation, if we go to the water, still to this day, even as a 45-year-old man, even I know the statistics, when we body surf or whatever it is, I am not sad to get out of the water. And I'm not sad to get out of the water because of this thing that the author did and what Spielberg did 35 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm a beach baby. I grew up part-time on an island. I love beaches. I'm 100% a beach baby, but I don't swim at dusk because That's when bull sharks attack. I don't swim at dawn. Like I look up beaches, like Cocoa Beach is near us. And I'm scared to go to Cocoa Beach because it has more shark bites, even though most shark bites are like nothing, right? You get a cool story and a little scar and you're fine. But even though I'm a beach baby, Jaws, again, global phenomenon, right? And the book is scary. I think if we hadn't seen the movie, we might be more afraid in the book. Like there's this moment at the end where Brody is like, how do you die to the shark? I think that's the line, right? Or he says it in his head, but he's kind of saying it to the shark. Right. At the very beginning, we're told that it's really easy for a shark to die, right? It just stops swimming. And we're told over and over again that it's stupid. And yet by the end, we don't believe any of that.
Right.
We believe that that shark is like brilliant and out to get them and will never die. And, you know, so
An
maybe
immortal monster.
right.
Yeah.
And he's sort of, and then there's that moment when Quint like guts the shark and it tries to eat it. It's like a zombie situation, right? The shark that he catches, the smaller shark, and he's showing off for Hooper and Birdie, right? And we get this sort of feeling that they're almost like zombies, right? It's cut completely open and it's still snapping, and the others come and
they start attacking each other, and
it's eating its own viscera. Like it's nuts.
it's like it's like a zombie movie, Brains, but it's just more shark.
Yeah, more shark. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is really scary. It's just that the movie is so scary.
The book is scary. That first passage in the book, when he's talking about when he killed Christine Hendricks, and the description of Jaws feels the vibrations and he's heading straight up, and that whole description my heart is pounding. I mean, I know what happens, but I'm getting nervous and I can feel it the way I felt it when I saw the movie. I feel it just the same reading the passages in the book of the shark attacks.
You know when I really felt that was when the shark doesn't get the boy. When the boy is in the water and they realize the shark and they're trying to get the boy and the shark is coming at. Then I was like, oh God, is he gonna make it? Is he gonna make it? Oh my God, is Birdie? And yeah, I had that heart palpitation kind of reaction to that as well.
Even after all these years, it still does.
Even after all these years, it's not safe.
Case, I want Case to say so. I tried to move it so that your microphone, Case, is like in sync. So let's see. Go ahead and say something into the microphone. Oh, not very loud.
I don't hear you.
Not very loud. All right, we'll switch it back. Good.
We're switching back.
The symphony kicked up again.
For all of you out there, we are playing with stuff tonight. Oh, okay.
Technical difficulties abound when you go live.
Yes. And when there's a symphony playing in the background.
When there's a symphony playing. I was worried that there was going to be a cat screaming the whole time because I'm obviously at home and one of my cats has spent all day. She's just been in a fit all day for attention and screaming. So we have peace and quiet here.
That cat's nothing compared to the symphony. I cannot hear you. No.
We're just testing stuff, like it's kind of hard to run live.
So Brandon.
Yeah.
Oh, I hear you.
Oh, you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
You're back.
All right, I'm back. We'll do our best.
We tried to sync the lips, but it was failed.
Yeah. So Sean, we have to do him justice because he can't be here.
Loggers.
We have to talk about Chapter 8, and I know that Sean felt, just having gone back and forth with him, I know that he felt like Chapter 8 was kind of worthless because there was no payoff in the end for the infidelity for Hooper and Ellen. Do you think there is payoff in the end? Because I know that I told my wife that the second that Hooper got eaten in the book, I was cheering. Because not because of Not because of Ellen, because she, like you said, she was there for herself. She that was her choice.
He's so smarmy in the book.
He's so schmarmy, and the way and the foreplay.
Case, before you go any further, maybe we should tell our readers, because we keep saying chapter 8 like they know. Maybe we should set this up a little. Can you hear me?
Can you hear her? Can you hear her?
Yep.
I don't see Lee.
Oh, she's there. Yeah.
I was saying maybe we should set up chapter 8 for our listeners.
Go for that. Go for it, Lee.
So spoilers. Chapter 8 of the book, Bertie's wife, Ellen, has decided she is going to have sex with Hooper. She makes the plan. She invites him out. He doesn't even know this is going to happen. He doesn't even know she's interested. And she even, sets it up so that he'll have another drink. She's really sort of planned this out. She's unhappy and she's trying to find some way to connect her old life as a rich sort of summerer to her new life as a struggling townie married to the sheriff. And for her, Hooper is that bridge. And so in chapter 8, she sets all of this up, and then they have lunch, and Hooper takes very little convincing. Again, he's pretty schmarmy. And then they do the deed. So that's what we're talking about when we keep saying chapter 8. All right, Case, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wasn't sure everybody knew. So what were you saying?
No, perfect. That's perfect. I'm glad you did that. You're right. I mean, I feel like sometimes we do that. We feel like everybody knows what we know. But it goes back to Sean was saying in the text, and I can't speak for him, but he said there was no payoff for it. And I believe there was payoff in the sense that the shark ate, Hooper and kind of gobbled him up. Like, if there was a eating within the book, this was a really good eating. But I think it was justified. And I think what Sean might be thinking, and I actually don't know, is that maybe because Brody never actually found the truth, that there was no payoff in this. And I think that opens a larger question: is that truth between Brody and his wife necessary for their love to go on? And Sean's coming back, so he might be able to answer that. But I think that's maybe the question that, as a reader, I felt yes, Hooper gets eaten bad.
Well, so I kind of have a problem with the idea that there has to be a payoff.
I think the payoff is getting slaughtered by Jaws.
Right, but I mean, I'm just saying that, like,
didn't want Brody to know. I didn't want him to find out.
But Brody knows.
Yeah.
I think Brody knows as much as Brody wants to know. Right?
Right.
As much as he can handle knowing.
Right.
But also, I don't know. I think that chapter, Case, you were saying it's a microcosm of the whole book in terms of the socioeconomic, but also in terms of Jaws, feeding on these people, right? I think it might just stand as that.
Yeah, I think so too. And it was a real turning point in the book. After chapter 8 is when they go out on the boat. I mean, it's like shortly after that is when they kind of go out in to hunt this shark. And we get Quint, who's introduced, who is he's my favorite character in the book. In the movie, he's portrayed somewhat different. I mean, very similarly, but he's more in the book. In the movie, he's more. The word's not offensive, abrasive. I mean, he's abrasive in the book, but it's an endearing abrasion.
I find him more endearing in the movie because they give him that backstory that they don't give him in the book. That's, I think, the one thing is
I think
USS Indianapolis monologue.
Yeah.
It's great in the book to give us that backstory of why he's slaughtering these fish for pure entertainment.
I think one of the things that happens in the book that doesn't happen in the movie, though, with Quint is his obsession towards the end, his maniacal, Moby Dickish, Ahabish obsession at the end I don't think we really get that in the movie. And I think we get that in the book. And I don't know that it makes him more sympathetic or likable, but it makes him more interesting to me.
I agree. I felt the same way about this kind of Moby Dickish kind of quest for him in the book.
So I like him better in the movie. But I think he's more interesting in the book.
Yes.
I think in the book, he was the first character that I actually liked through and through, even though he was somewhat sadistic and he had like you were talking about earlier, he had the baby porpoise, in the book too. If you don't know, in the book, it's he collects a baby porpoise as bait for Jaws, which is really kind of, it's inhumane. And in the movie, he doesn't do that. But even with that, I felt like within the book, I felt like here's a character I like. And I like Brody. I think, and that's the weird thing about the chapter 8 is I feel like after chapter 8, I started to really like the protagonist more. And did the writer do that with his wife having an affair, make us pull for Brody more because we were angry at Hooper as an antagonist along with the shark, right? Did you think the writer did that because we felt sorry for Brody?
I don't know. I think that when we have Brody and Hooper in the boat, we have another microcosm of the shark. We have another microcosm of the socioeconomic stuff. I think it's just another way to create echoes. I fall in love with Brody when that woman is screaming at him about her kid and you feel so much for her, but he is breaking, right? He is so, and the only way he knows how to respond to his own guilt and sadness is by anger. And that's when I really get him. That's when I am all about Brody, is his inability to kind of deal with that that engulfing sadness, that engulfing guilt. And he snaps at her. And I think most people find that super unlikable, but I get it, right? That my heart breaks for him in that moment.
Right. Can he do? What more can he do?
Yeah.
I think what a profound moment for me where Brody just gets to my heart is the dinner party when Hooper gives Ellen oh, I'm in and out. Hang on. Okay. Oh. Technical difficulties. I lost my mic. I lost it. Oh, can you hear me, Lee?
I can.
Okay.
How about me?
Yes.
Too.
I'm back in black. Look at me. I got some headphones on. I'm living life. I got a little bit of bourbon and some beers here.
There was like a stuck piece in like the extension cord, and I finally got it out, and so I was able to give them their own headphones.
Oh
finally.
My gosh,
that was like a production nightmare.
Oh,
live streaming. How's everybody doing?
Good. Yeah.
Hello, audience.
We're now officially here.
Oh my gosh. Leave comments. We'll respond. We can see your comments. So if you comment on the Facebook or the YouTube at the Banding Collective, we can respond to you. So this has been a great discussion. I've enjoyed it. I've just been stressed out trying to get these guys volume and their mics to sync. So here we go.
Now we're here.
Continue.
We're here.
Yeah, I was saying a profound moment for me where, like I said, I love Brody. I've always have.
Yeah.
But the moment when they're it's the dinner party and Hooper gifts Ellen with the shark tooth.
Oh yeah.
And she takes the pearls off that Brody gave
that moment
and throws them on the coffee table.
Like she's not even thinking about him, and he puts them in his pocket.
Yeah, he picks them up and put them in his pocket. My heart broke. My heart just broke. So I forgave him for his loudish, brutish behavior at the dinner party because look what happened. She cast him aside for Hooper, and he saw that, and he felt that, and that's a heartbreaking moment.
Well, and it starts earlier when she puts on her wedding pearls for this dinner party that she's asked Hooper, that she's put together just for Hooper, right? He notices it. He's like, she's wearing the pearls I gave her for our wedding. Oh. Yeah. And so it like escalates, right?
Yeah. And he's not a man with a lot of money.
No. No.
So those
No.
did not come by easily, you know. I mean, it's, you know, and that, well, and it goes even back to like the introduction of their relationship, where and we see these as humans, right? That they said, well, when we first started dating, we both started to go to each other's friends to, you know, try to commingle, to mix groups together, the summer people with the money and the townies. And then eventually we do, and this goes back to what Lee was saying earlier with Ella, that why she sympathizes with her, is that Brody early on obviously was not willing to spend time with the summer people, the Yaleys. And she says, well, we tried both, but we always ended up going with Brody's friends, right? And she really holds this against him. But to see the pearls and the shark fin, or the shark tooth.
Yeah.
Again, another metaphor, which this book is really, the more I read it, becomes better and better, because it's like, you know, she takes the shark's tooth, which is an outsider, from the outsider, and replaces her husband's pearls, the townies.
Both from the ocean.
Right. You know, yeah, both from the ocean, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if the writer knew this, but, you know, I mean, he's millionaire now, I'm guessing, I'm hoping, if he's still alive. But those metaphors are really, really well done. And so, I mean, I was surprised, Lee. I was so surprised about how... And did you know this going in when you suggested the book?
No, I 100% thought that the book was going to be garbage. I'm just going to admit it. I thought it would be hilarious. We'd make fun of it some. We'd talk about how much better the movie is, blah, blah, blah. I was not expecting to love it.
Yeah.
I really wasn't. And
we hammered Twilight. We hammered Hemingway. And then, but this is the first one that we've all said, this has a lot of merit. Well, I mean, Hemingway has merit. That's a longer discussion for a previous podcast.
Well, and it's not that this isn't problematic.
Right.
It's just that even when it's problematic, it's still trying to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That it, you know, I don't know. You know,
I do have a question though.
Yeah.
Does he need to spend as much time on the sex scenes as the death scenes with the shark? I mean, I know you guys are like, I'm being painted as the prude here. I get that. Maybe I am the prude. I live a very prudish life. I almost went into the convent, you know, except for I was a male, and then no, I mean.
Well,
you've only known me for 30 years, and Lee's only known me for a decade, and Brandon's known me. You know, I'm a prudish person. You know,
I don't think you're being prudish. I think the problem with the sex scenes is, I think there's two problems with the sex scenes, and I don't think the sex scenes are problematic if we can somehow have both things happen. Mm-hmm. I think one reason the sex scenes are uncomfortable is because they're kind of treated the same way the shark is.
Mm-hmm.
Sean compared it to a field guide, and they really are kind of written that way. There's this detachment, there's this observerness, and it's not voyeuristic. It's, I wouldn't say clinical. I wouldn't go so far as to say clinical, but neither are field guides, right? It's sort of somewhere in between, and it's not that different to talk about it's not that different than the talk about the shark. Mm-hmm. And Christina Miller has asked, can we talk about the allegory between shark and humans? Is it possible to overcome the monster? And I think this is a place to talk about it. I think in a lot of sci-fi and creature features and things like that today, the message is often the humans were the monster all along. I don't think that's the message here. I think it's that we're all animals. I know that Jaws is the monster, but I don't know that it's the monster. I think in a lot of ways it's the animal in us all that's just trying to survive and feed. And at every point we're hurting someone else when we're trying to do it. Does that make What do y'all think? Am I making sense, or am I going off on a?
Making perfect sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, the monster in this is, well, first off, I think the monster in this is not, I mean, not the monster, this, but the monster, the shark. I don't think the shark in this is the bad guy. Not in the book. I mean, in the movie for sure, he is. I don't know if it's he or she. But in the book, I don't think the shark is the antagonist. I think the shark is just a part of that culture there, and it's disruptive in that culture, a culture that people have on Amity, right, have come to expect, the Yaleys on one side and the Townies on the other, and the shark is a disruptor, not an antagonist, not a Darth Vader. He's a
Except for Quint. I mean, for Quint, he's an antagonist, but Quint is also his that's a different kind of. I think there's a lot of relationships here in terms of the shark and in terms of the Townies and in terms of the summer people. I think it's an ecocosm. It's like I think it's hard. I think that's kind of the point here, is it's hard. We're not necessarily rooting against or for any of these people. There is a monster in here. I just remembered. There's the mob guy. There's a mob guy. We never really meet him so much. He's a monster.
Yes, this is really interesting too, because that brings in the motivation of the mayor in a way that the movie does not at all. And the mayor in this is suave, right? I mean, he's not the clown. In the movie, he's the clown. Absolutely. In this, he's a socialite. He's rich. He's a socialite. He's a real estate developer.
But he was a townie.
And his motivations are based on
shark,
just like the shark, right? I mean, he's got the mob, like you said. The mob is pulling the strings of all of this. How many times in the book did they say, who is the mayor? Who are the mayor's partners? And they're like, who are his partners? Who are his partners? And at the end we find out that it's
who knew the mob would be tied into Jaws? Right.
But the mob, I mean, this is the East Coast in the 1970s. And it's, I mean, it's not of course the mob, but it could be the mob, that makes sense.
Well, and the mayor's not the bad guy, right? So then we think, then the mayor's got to be the monster. But the mayor's only in with the mob because his wife was dying 1,000,000 years ago and he had to borrow some money.
Right. And we love her.
Sweet little Mrs. Vaughn.
Mm-hmm.
And, he tried to repay him and they said no.
Yeah,
he tried to not be in their pocket.
Right.
Twice. He gave them checks and they wouldn't cash them or give him back his marker. So, again, that's that parasitic relationship.
Yeah. Which, again, goes back to my thought that this book kind of blew my mind in the way that Lee, when you suggested it, I thought this was going to be a killer thriller that we kind of ripped on the prose, but the prose was pretty good too. I thought that the writing was pretty good. I thought the sentences were great.
I totally highlighted stuff.
Yeah. And the way that he juxtaposes so many different things of our lives, with when it comes to wealth and when it comes to greed and when it comes to envy and when it comes to loss, and all of these things. Again, I thought this was going to be one of those ripper-uppers that we plan to do over the next 12 months, right? But it wasn't. It was a really cool book, and maybe that says something to Spielberg too, because Spielberg, it's like he says, I can pick up this book, I can pick up this book, and it's got a lot to it because it does have the townies, and it has the movie does show partly the economic struggle, the 4th of July, what happens if the beaches close. And again, that goes back to that whole kind of pandemic stuff that we talked about earlier. How do we balance life and economy and safety? But it was a great book. And so I'm really glad we read it. So I do have a question too, though, about Hooper, like this guy.
This guy.
I'm not a fan because obviously I'm the prude in the room. I am. I'm offended by sex scenes.
No, you're not.
I am.
Oh,
I am.
are they hard to read, Case?
I think Lee kind
Are
of.
you embarrassed when you're reading them? That's what I want.
Do you blush when you read it?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I think that Sean and Lee had it right. That it was like a.
It's weird.
Sorry, men, but I think that women write them better. You know, I think men kind of. Well, I mean, and there was.
Is that a challenge?
The author nailed it in a way during chapter 8. We go back to chapter 8, where they have this. And these are kids outside. These are high schoolers doing the
Case is like they can hear us talking right now.
Worried about this. Anyways, when Hooper gets to that first kind of hopefully they don't know what O means, right? These high schoolers.
Oh my God.
That was cringy.
That was cringy, and it was.
But it was supposed to be, right?
Yeah. And they set it up that way.
It wasn't cringy because the writing was bad. It was cringy because it was cringy. It was supposed to be she cringes. She can't get it out of her mind.
Right. It was he was a zombie, right? But she basically painted him as a zombie.
But then again,
thank you.
You're welcome.
But then again, he told her that when they're
he did. He did. He
like,
told her, yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna go real fast. It's gonna be ugly, but then
and it was aggressive, right? Yeah. Which brings me to the
next time through. It'll be nice and more sensitive.
Yeah.
By that time, she was done. She was done.
She said she liked the next time, but she couldn't get it out of her head.
Yeah, because he was.
She literally says, "I'm here too."
Right. She literally, which was
she literally
for dialogue. It was really, really well done.
Yeah.
Lily's losing it.
It was because I'm reading it. I'm like, oh shit. She said that out loud. And so that's where I think she is a pretty self-actualized. That's why I don't think she's ashamed of sex, right?
Right. Well, it makes him, as the author, more self-aware of being a man than I previously gave him credit for.
Right.
The other problem with the sex scene, and someone, Facebook user, I don't know your name, said, Lee, even when it's problematic, it's still trying to do stuff. This is literally me. I had said that earlier. And so now we're going to talk maybe a little bit about that. The other problem with the sex scenes is rape fantasy comes up in chapter 8. And sorry, Dory, did you want to say something about that before I do?
I'm sorry. Like she had, right before we started the podcast, she had said that. So go on, Lee. I'm sorry.
So, in this scene, Hooper, as like some form of dangerous foreplay in the restaurant, asks her about her fantasies. She's brought this up, so he's taking it, and he's now convinced her to tell. And she talks about rape fantasy. But I think, again, if we look at this about time period, so sex studies have shown, especially during the 70s and 80s, that rape fantasies were actually really common for women. And a lot of that has to do with taboos about women wanting sex. So I think it's really easy now to look at that and say, fuck this guy, right? But it actually, I think, goes back to the fact that she wants to have sex with someone who's not her husband for reasons other than love or even a long-term affair or even connection. She wants to do it to feel better about her socioeconomic situation, class. And so there's a certain amount of, I think, probably semi-appropriate shame in that. And so I think that's where the rape fantasy plays into that. That being said, that was an uncomfortable read for me.
That and her other fantasy of being a sex worker, and isn't that every woman's fantasy? She says.
Well, I think she's trying to do some really awkward flirting there, because he's like, "Is it yours?" And she's like, "Oh, well."
She's a little rusty in the flirt department.
She's like, "No." But it must be someone's. It's a very, very strange set of dialogue.
It's uncomfortable. And then there's the whole rape thread through the whole book that he keeps coming around to the.
No, speak more on that, because I didn't. When you said them, Dory said this to me over text, And I knew it in chapter 8 with the fantasies, but I didn't see it throughout the book as a continual metaphor. So please.
When he talks about the women in the town, how they want to keep all the bad news hush hush for the summer people because they want them to come back. They don't want the bad publicity. He, a few occasions he talks about those summer people experiencing a string of rapes, but none of them wanted to come to the police.
No, I think it was the town people who experienced. What?
The town, or I thought it was the summer people, but nobody.
There's a series of rapes.
Yes, and that goes back to the whole. Actually had this conversation with Christina Miller, who's been commenting tonight. Like Lee said, it's like about the fantasy where they feel like they can't be sexual, or a modern woman now is like, yeah, we can be sexual, we can sort of sexual dominance, but back then they couldn't have multiple partners, and so for them that rape fantasy, it was a thing for them.
Well, and then it goes back to the series of rapes is compared to the shark. Not directly, but indirectly, right? They kept things hush hush. They're trying to keep things hush hush about the shark. So there's a line there. I don't know that it works, but it's definitely there. There's also a race issue in it, which I think if it was the only time race was brought up would be a reason to throw the book in the garbage. They mentioned that the rapist is black, and I was really uncomfortable. Angry, and I stand by that. I still am about that detail. I think it was unnecessary. I think it was problematic is not a strong enough word. On the other hand, there's also other scenes where race is brought up, and sort of just there's a scene where a black father is putting his black child to bed, and the child wants a story. There's a scene where they talk about how one of the townspeople was going to hire 2 busboys, and now can't afford 2. And he's worried that it's going to cause racial strife because he's going to hire the black busboy and not the white busboy, because he feels like the black busboy needs the money more because the black people in the town are suffering a harder economic hardship than the white people, townies, even though everybody is failing. And so again, this is one of those places where I think the author is trying to do something. I do think he fails miserably, but I recognize something is being attempted there. Does that make sense? I don't want to give him too much credit, but seen in the scope of the book, I might be wrong. What do you guys think?
I think you're right on the money on that. Oh, I got loud.
Go for it again.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. It's clumsily done. It's not. I wasn't a fan of that.
Yeah. I thought. Well, I mean, I think it could be done less. I mean, especially when he's talking about hiring one of the 2 young boys, and I think there's actually a point where he says that the young African American boy actually worked harder than the other kid did.
And then he goes to say, "Thank God that white boy wasn't Jewish." I thought, stop while you're ahead.
Right. Well,
stop.
That's our whole Hemingway discussion from last time. Is Hemingway was racist and
anti-Semitic.
I don't think this author comes. I don't think that's it. I think that he's doing his best, like Lee said, maybe clumsily, to talk about this in a way that people would talk about it in 1975. And I think in 1975, he's saying, as an author, he's addressing it in a way that he's trying to say, you know what, the best worker, no matter where they come from, socioeconomically or racially, should get the job. He did it clumsily, I think, what Lee is saying, and I agree completely with that. I do think it's really weird if we go back to chapter 8 again. the fantasy stuff again brings race back into it. And
It does, and it's very
it's
bad.
And Hooper is the pusher of that. It's not. That's not actually Ellen. That's Hooper saying, "Well, what do you think about this?" And
it's part of, it's part of why we don't like Hooper, and that is definitely on purpose, right?
I think so. Yes, I think it is. And and we talked about this with Hemingway in that way too, though, is that at least this author did it through Hooper, someone that we can say, this guy's an asshole straight through and through.
We already
hate him. If he brings this up, and which of course I saw it as Hooper being, this is an envious thing and agreeing to things. I think the author is trying. I thought the author was trying, maybe clumsily, 45 years ago.
Yeah.
We
do have to think it was 74.
But I don't think that he was outwardly
he wasn't outwardly Hemingway.
He wasn't outwardly.
He wasn't outwardly Hemingway. That's going to be our new term.
That's such a compliment. Oh my God.
You're so not Hemingway, Brandon.
You're so not Hemingway.
You're so not outwardly.
Outwardly
Hemingway.
Outwardly.
I mean, jumping to a new subject, but still, Hooper talking about, Benchley himself talking about penis size constantly. Penis size.
Right.
Shark size.
You know what?
Shark size.
Just went down shark size.
No, it's. I think it's a direct tie.
Because he talks about that in the fantasy. When I said penis size, the music died right when I said that. That's so fucking awkward.
And they're all high school children.
I know. Forgive me. I'm so sorry.
For those who are joining on the live feed and are like, why is there so much orchestral music? Well, we don't know. It's just band practice, apparently, behind the podcast studio. We had no idea. So those of you just joining, thanks for hanging in with us on the live stream.
Brandon did ask if they could play Jaws.
I tried to get him to play Jaws. It's
like the Jaws theme.
Yeah, we don't have the notes. Sorry.
You John Williams out there.
That would have been amazing.
I know, wouldn't it though? Like a
little
an
intro.
I just need to put a shout out to the Jaws theme music because it is probably the best theme music ever written for anything ever.
Amen.
It feels that sharp point of view.
Yes, it does.
And we still use it. We still joke about it when we get in the ocean at the San Diego or whatever,
Yeah.
Yes, Facebook user, this music that you are hearing during this podcast is live and unplanned.
Unfortunately. I mean, or fortunately.
But it is quite nice.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty.
It is actually the Ogden Youth Orchestra. They're all in high school. They're all under 18. And they are directed by Gabriel Gordon,
He's doing a fantastic job.
Who is amazing and does so many things for our community. So shout out to Gabriel Gordon for the things that he does in Ogden. They're fantastic and they're lovely to hear. Yes, Facebook
I thought I was at the wrong location when I showed up. That's why I texted you.
Oh yeah.
Where in the Monarch are you?
Yeah.
Because there is an orchestra in the hallway.
Yeah. No, I mean, what Gabriel does is really a good. I mean, we just lucked out.
They sound
with it.
beautiful.
They are beautiful. Yes.
They did. They sound beautiful.
Way better if they had a Jaws theme.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can put a request next time.
Maybe then after that we could do Star Wars.
Who plans ahead? Let's plan ahead with this stuff.
So I'm thinking for this, let's wrap this up at 7 because
it's
9 o'clock for me.
It is. It's almost 9.
Not for us. It's early for us, but I mean, really
and I'm once again in finals week.
Yes, I turned in grades on Tuesday for Weber State, but my life, I'm always teaching. But earlier today, Brandon and I, we interviewed Paisley Rechdel, who's the poet laureate of Utah, and I was
really good.
I was shaking because she is that. What's the word? Intelligent, intimidating.
First time I saw Chase shaking during a podcast.
Yeah, I was nervous. I actually printed out my questions because I was that fantastically intimidated by Paisley. She's really fantastic. I don't know where I was going with that. I was like, this is our second podcast. This is the whiskey. I'm drinking whiskey now. You know, it's great. So I think this is like when it comes to this book, do you think that there were people who read the book in 74 and the movie came out in 75? It was really, really quick. So I'm guessing that this guy had an amazing agent who sold the movie rights really close to when the book was actually coming out, which is really cool. Do you think there were people who read the book and said the movie was bad?
No.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, well, that's easy. I thought it would be a longer answer.
Well,
so I agree.
Okay, you know what? I think when it comes to the unbelievability, although now we find out it's fully believable, of the mayor just being like, no. Oh, wait. I just remembered the part in the book that reminded me so much of the pandemic. So for those of you who haven't read the book, this isn't in the movie, and it's really, you wouldn't have known how smart it is until today. But when the first time they closed the beaches, a lawyer goes out and starts reading parts of the Constitution. He's demanding to be allowed to swim, and he's claiming that the Constitution gives him a right to swim. Just a side note, because I just remembered that, and it was like, oh my God, he's like out there screaming. I was like, oh, this feels familiar. So I do think that maybe people were like, well, we lost some stuff that was important, but I just don't know that you can watch Jaws and not think it's a phenomenal film.
Like I said, it's a cinematic masterpiece, and that's not a bold statement.
No, it's not.
It is.
It is. It is. I watched it last night, and the pacing.
Yes.
Oh.
And Sean said this, and Sean's out there. I hope he's listening. I hope he's has found internet. But he said this in our chat. He said that like the casting for the movie was spectacular. It was dead on. And though like Hooper was a different person in the movie.
Thank goodness.
And
I don't know that I could have watched this Hooper on the screen.
No, I hated Hooper. I wanted him to get eaten so much earlier. And I loved when he got eaten. He got eaten. I was so happy with him being chowed down by a shark. But Sean's absolutely right. Like what Spielberg did with casting. And because Brody in the book is like 32. He's chubby. He's got.
I thought he was 40.
Was he 40?
I think he's 40.
And
he's chubby. He's getting his paunch.
He's got his paunch.
His 40 paunch.
His 40
paunch. A perfectly normal 40 paunch.
He's not Scheider, right?
Look, that Scheider had a lifelong. I still have a crush on Scheider.
Yes. Yes. And I do. You know, I mean, I watched it last night, and I was like, that dude is amazing. And, his jawline. And we talked, Dory and I were talking about earlier about our genetics.
His jaw's line.
No matter what I do, all I have is the Chavez, like, what is it? Like the Chavez
turkey neck, right?
Turkey neck. And I can't get it.
At least you have a chin. I have the Camacho slope.
Yes. I think this is this all because is this the whole Latin thing? Because we all have.
I thought you were Italian, Case.
Yeah, I was Italian. Well, that's what I was talking about with Paisley Rectal earlier. She's Chinese American, and she always gets you're Italian, and I'm like
that too.
Yeah.
Me too. I get that too.
Yeah,
are you Italian or Greek?
Are you Italian or Greek? And I'm like, well, actually, I'm half Mexican American. And I said all of us Italian should get some coffee together, because
I get Camacho. That's an Italian name, right?
Yeah.
No,
it's not.
No, Camacho is not. It's like Smith for Latinx.
Yeah. Well, we're to the point in our life where I'm way off track. Okay, this is Case having whiskey. My mom.
This is the better side of Case. Case drinking non-alcoholic beer before, so
I was
is a
so
lot better.
Professional, wasn't I?
Yeah.
But at least I don't have to worry because Dory and Lee have seen me at my very best,
which means your very worst.
Which means my very worst.
I've known you for a long time.
Yes, I mean they've both seen me at my very worst.
Before we wrap, though, I'd like to encourage anyone watching. We got a few people watching. I'd like, if you have questions, we can see the questions come up. Type those into the Facebook, wherever you're watching, the YouTube or the Facebook page. or the group, and we can answer any questions you guys, any of you have, or we can respond or just say hi or whatever. We'd love to see you. They should pop up here. So say a little something, and we'll respond.
Well,
And
while we're waiting for that, I actually have something not about Jaws that I kind of want to say. So this past week, I had the opportunity to read Case's upcoming novel, Let the Wild Grasses Grow, which is going to be coming out of Torrey House Press. And listeners, be excited. It's a beautiful book. And it's, again, called Let the Wild Grasses Grow. It will be out with Torrey House Press. Case, when is that book coming out?
Never. And
Never.
Stop that.
Lee, you were a gem to me. I told you that. October.
It's coming out in October. That was my book's
for
birthday.
reading
Was in October.
and
It's a really beautiful book.
Everything. It's based on my grandparents, my Cordova Chavez grandparents. It's a reimagination of what they lived through in northern New Mexico, southern Colorado 100 years ago. And kind of like the idea of assimilation, which we see through my mom, but no, thank you, Lee, so much. You are,
I just couldn't let the podcast
you
go without it.
Because you're making me cry.
Case has you write so beautifully. I'm excited to read the book.
And better, I enjoyed Jaws, but I enjoyed just one more time, Let the Wild Grasses Grow by Case Johnston even more.
Lee, now I'm angry with you. Now, I know, but I'm angry in the way you love family. But thank you so much.
All right, Alexis says, hi, Dory. Hi, Dory.
Hi, Dory.
Christina's asking, what was your favorite thing in the book, not in the movie?
Oh, that's a really good question.
For me, honestly, it's the dinner party scene and the scene with Brody. That touched me.
Which scene?
The Brody with the pearls. The whole scene where he's angry, he's getting drunk, and we can forgive him for being a loutish brute because look at his wife.
She's kind of screwing him over.
She is.
Yeah.
For me, I love that whole dinner party scene.
Yeah. I along the same lines, my favorite scene was probably when Brody pinned Hooper up against just manhandled him and said, "Where were you last Wednesday?" For everybody listening, that is chapter 8 was last Wednesday.
Chapter 8 obviously is
right, big deal. And Brody knew.
Yeah.
And I think that was my favorite scene because it was so human. It was so it touched on so many things that we all go through in life. It had nothing to do with the shark. It had nothing to do, both of these scenes, right? It had nothing to do with shark.
Right.
And that's why the book surprised me, I think, because it was not the shark.
Well, the human drama.
The human drama. When he pinned him up and he said, "Where were you last Wednesday?" And he said, "I was with," what's her name again?
Daisy Wickman.
Daisy Wickman. He's like, "Oh, really?" And we all know that Daisy was a lesbian. And we all knew right then that, Brody knew. That was my favorite scene.
Yeah.
My favorite thing in the book, not in the movie, is throughout the book, in the same way there are vignettes from the shark's, not point of view, but third person omniscient, where the shark is the main character in those vignettes. There are throughout the book vignettes of the townspeople, ones that are not main characters in the book, some which are never seen in the book other than in those vignettes, that give you a global view of this town. And I really liked those. I think you could take them out and the book would still work. But I really enjoyed those. They were sometimes tender. They were sometimes less than tender, but they always added an atmosphere that I think the movie lacks. Even though, of course, the movie, one of my favorite movies of all time. But again, it created a human drama just to see people in their homes or out on the beach or whatever living.
I like the idea of spotlighting townies.
Yeah.
And townies don't they're just not on the beach. They're not just in the mountains like we are here. Like, so I went to school at did my MA at Kansas State, and it's a small town in Manhattan, Kansas. And it was the same thing. It was student life at the university, and then there were townies, those who had grown up. They were probably agriculturally, they're agricultural workers, and that's a very real thing. And it's not just real in this book, but it's not just real in 1975. That is very real today. It's not just real in the United States. It's real in Cancun, and it's real in Puerto Vallarta, and it's real in Greece.
It's real in Corpus Christi, Texas.
It's real in,
where I'm from.
right.
Yep. It's real in Florida. It's real in Louisiana.
Yeah.
My two homes.
These, and I think that's the heart of the book, isn't it? I mean, at the
It
end,
is.
It comes down to, how do we attract tourists to save our economy, to keep our economy flowing, when bad things happen? How do we hide the underbelly of real life from tourists?
And how do we put our own lives in danger for that?
Right. And how do we say we are lesser than?
Yeah.
Because their money is more important than our lives. That's the I think that's the crux of the book, isn't it?
Yeah. And then there's this moment, there's a bunch of moments, not a moment, where there's this sort of reverse snobbery, as I think the way the author puts it. I wouldn't quite put it that way, but where you're not as good if you're a summerer, right? Like, you don't have there's a certain pride the townspeople have in their poorness. And that's so real. That's so on the nose. And that's one of the things that the book really gets right, is this this hard pride.
I agree. And I think Ogden is, where we live, is a perfect example of that. Like, we have our trail system.
Yep.
You know, we have our mountain bike system. We have, I mean, like Xterra, the biggest like championship for mountain biking in the world, is held here. And we look at the people that come for it, and we think, get off our trails. These are our trails. We want them to come down, and we want them to spend money on historic 25th Street. But we get aggravated when they actually get here. And I think Brandon can speak a lot to this, can't Brandon? Right? I mean, the way in which Ogden Outdoors kind of like...
Yeah, I deal with it personally because, you know, I want to promote Ogden so that everybody comes, but I don't want everybody to come. So yeah,
Right.
It's rough. Yeah.
And
I live just outside of Disney World here in Central Florida. I live in a little town called Clearmont. And it's actually kind of a rich town.
Brandon, Florida, by the way. I have a picture of me as a kid by Brandon, Florida.
I don't know. I might be. I don't know. The town I'm in is actually pretty rich, and it's weird because I'm not used to that. And but they're also really mad that people are moving here, and yet they want people to move here so it can still be a prosperous, rich town. So
Change, don't change.
Yeah.
Don't change.
Don't change. Yeah. And so even though it's not the same kind of townies, it's still that same, I don't know, perpetual kind of thing. And then in Louisiana, of course, you know, South Louisiana, it's more traditional, right? Like, come to New Orleans, but just don't get in our stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Don't mess it up.
Yeah. And Brandon can see it. I think Brandon is in touch with like our situation more than anybody. And I think when it comes down to it, we look at this book and there's so much to it. There really is. And
it's deep.
And the shark is COVID, or the shark is, you know, AIDS in the 1980s, or the shark is in New York City or something like that, right? Or the shark is, I mean, the shark is just a shark in the sense that everybody's scared of it. And what do we do to protect ourselves economically to weather the storm, and how do we balance economics, staying alive, having jobs? Those are important. I mean, I'm you know me, I'm a hugely liberal, but people need to make money and have jobs and live. And so the shark is like,
And also not have their kids eaten.
right. And yeah,
It's not a choice we should ever have to make.
Yeah,
that's bad.
This is I mean, this book actually really speaks to us in a way that I did not expect it to speak to us. Is it COVID? Is it the stock market in 2008? Is it the bubble from the software bubble and that burst? You know, what is it? You know, and I think the shark is just enigmatic of all of that, right? I mean, and this may be the whiskey speaking. I mean, it is. I mean, man, this is really good.
This is the best. This is the best case I've seen. This is fantastic.
I think this is my brightest. But I think there's a reason why Jaws resonates.
It touches everybody
Mm-hmm.
in different ways.
And the fear, right at its cornerstone.
Fear, yes.
Fear is just a huge part of our lives. Fear of the unknown, fear of the things we can't control, fear of things that don't make sense. Because that's really what Jaws is. They talk about this over and over again. It's not making sense. It's not doing what it should do. We can't guess where it's going. We can't guess. We don't even know if it's still here, right? I think that cornerstone.
Right, that's a really good point. It's like we don't know if it, and that they say that over and over, don't they, Lee? I mean, it's
yeah,
like
over and over.
It's got to be.
Well, he's
gone.
probably gone.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? Just close the beach forever? How do we even know if it's gone? Right? Like,
well, that sounds
and,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. It sounds, it hit close to the bone. It hit a lot closer to the bone. But I think this idea of fear and survival, this is the core of what it is to be both an animal and a human. And I think that's what's up with this. I think that's why it's so compelling.
Yes, absolutely.
Hey Lee, take us out. What do we know what the next book is? I'd love to have our viewers read along with us and then participate in the next live version of this. So, yeah.
I believe so. At the beginning of our project, we each chose a book. Jaws was mine, and I think that Fight Club. Am I right here? Case is Fight Club next?
No, I have yet to choose a book. So Sean, I
thought that was Tia's, but
I thought Sean chose Twilight.
No, you chose Twilight.
Wasn't that the whole debate? Who chose
that was the whole debate. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to settle this right here. Case chose Twilight.
Did I really?
He chose it as a joke, and we were all like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Okay, so then Tia's next.
Yeah, and I think
Tia's Fight Club, right? Am I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that Dory should jump on with us too.
Well, okay.
As long as we get the audio visual.
So here's what I'm going to say. We will let you know what the next book is. We think it might be Fight Club, but we have to discuss. We should have had our ducks in a row.
I Sean chose Twilight.
But follow us on
the group page is Lee.
The group page is Bourbon
Beer.
No. Bourbon, Beer, and Book. Let's try this again. The group page on Facebook is Bourbon, Beer, and Books, and you should join us there. Have conversations, read along. We'll post for sure what the next book is in the next couple of days.
Okay, so before we get off, and I know it's whiskey again,
Case,
right?
Huh.
Who gave him whiskey?
I know it's really good.
I put
the
3
High
on
West
the
is
table.
really good.
It's really good.
So Lee, and this is like revenge. Her and Saul Lemerond are coming out with a new textbook about.
Yeah. So you want to do it? Do you know it? You got it?
You do it.
You want me to do it? Okay. So my writing partner Saul and I are next year we'll have a book out about teaching podcast in the creative writing classroom. And we've got some guest people writing in it, including Case, and that'll be out next year. And it has nothing to do with Jaws, and it won't be as interesting.
but it's going to be fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Solid
And
Lee's amazing.
And Brandon, you're gonna edit all of this real nicely, right?
This is as it. We're live, so this is the final product right here.
Thank you for joining us.
What you get.
What you see is what you get. Yeah, I don't know who these two people are who have hung strong the entire time, but
Christina, we know
God bless you.
Christina.
No, she left. She bailed. So there's somebody else,
Oh,
two
okay.
other people, and
It's
Thank
not
you for
the one.
joining us.
those are damn heroes. That's who you
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you have
Is
a.
that a wrap? Is that an official?
That's what I think. This is a.
That's-
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
official wrap.
I'm
Okay.
doing a wrap.
We miss Sean. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
And
We miss
Tia.
Tia.
We always miss you. And thank you so much, Dory, for joining us for this.
Thank you, Dory.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, Dory.
Thank you, Brandon, for running things.
Anytime. Sorry, it was sort of messy. We had live music. No idea that.
Yeah,
was
we
gonna
had
happen.
no-
That was-
You handled that well, Brandon. And
Well-
thanks for the bourbon.
Oh, Christina's still here.
Christina's still here. Christina, thank you. And Alexis, thank you. And Facebook user, thank you.
Facebook user. Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's
You-
probably Sean.
it's somebody in the he does do that from now and then, but yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
thanks you guys for watching. I appreciate it. We'll be here next month. It's usually the first week in the month, and so the first Tuesday or whatever in the month. So we'll pick the book, we'll put it up in the page, which the Facebook page is Bourbon, Beer, and Books. It's a group. Sorry, it's a group, not a page. So you can, if ask to join, we let everybody in. I don't know why you have to ask to join. We let everybody in. So
Except racist and homophobes.
you have to answer a question here first. Yeah.
And misogynist.
And misogynists,
misogynist.
I
yes.
don't like those people.
Yes.
Otherwise,
Racist, homophobes, misogynists, please do not apply.
that's true.
Yes.
That's true. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.